All right, guys. Good afternoon to everybody. Once again.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Excellent.
Okay.
So today we're moving to, I think, chapter 5 or the chapter 4. It's only categories of financial products, so we don't have to actually look into that because it's just the types of financial product that's in the slide. So we'll move on to the next slide. Let me just load the slide up. Who has a question on the previous? So today we'll be looking at pricing. Who has a question on the previous, lecture? The previous lecture. Who has a question on that before we proceed, or maybe an observation? Now, let me also say that I hope you have seen the survey that I posted, and I hope you have actually, done them, because we are supposed to evaluate all the courses that we teach. Please give as candid as possible, so that we will be able to evaluate our shortcomings and then make amends. If you just give us because you like us, you're not helping us, right? So have a very candid opinion so that we can actually use it to measure our performance and to correct them. Is that okay? And it's also anonymous, so there is no need to think that you have to be nice to somebody. Nobody can actually see what you say. Are you with me? So, yeah, so those of you who haven't done it, please try and do it. I can paste it here in the chat if you don't have the link, but I'm sure all of you have had it. Have you all received the links?
Yes, but do we do for all of them?
For all the lectures, yeah, all the courses that you're in. Yeah.
I've done only one.
Yeah, so you have to do for your other courses. So you select the department, you select the course, you select the lecturer, and then you rate. All right, so you're supposed to do for all your courses that you're taking. Are you with me? And it's important that we do that because the system actually let us know individual faculty or individual, lecturer and their strength areas or their weaknesses, so we'll be able to, communicate and address it. All right. So be candid in your submission because it will go a long way to affect our quality and the way we actually, providing our services, which is good to measure. I must say that the software was developed by me. All right. So I try to do some innovative approach of customer service, measurement, where the service quality could be attributable to an individual person who is actually carrying out the what do you call it, the service. Because what we have in the system is an aggregated, kind of a service quality that you can actually trace to individual people. So I'm trying to promote a new kind of system, a software. So the business school is using it as a trial. If it works, perhaps they will try and implement it across. So try and give your feedback. I hope it's all right. Okay. All right, so guys, today we're going to look at pricing of financial services. Oh, but always, you guys don't show your face. I'm the only one who shows my face every day. And sometimes Bridget. And she also. Because when it happens like that, it's as if I'm the only one talking in the class. It's not nice. I beg, some of you should open your videos. Those of you in a sound position to do so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't have to be in a class alone, do I? Okay, so Bridget, let's see you. Gilbert, are you in a position to show? Dora, Joseph, Michael, Dolores, are you guys in a position to? Mary?
Doc, if I show my network.
We'll go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll allow you.
Bobby.
Yes.
Please, I don't have front camera. Oh.
You don't have front camera. Okay, I'll buy you one.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll buy you one. I'm an Apple fan, so if you love Apple, dear, I love Apple. Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good to see you, Joseph. And then let's see who else. Okay. And Michael is not. Kukua. Okay, great. All right, guys. At least so that I have company. Otherwise, I feel so lonely. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to look at one of the most important variables in the marketing mix, which is the pricing. Obviously, pricing is, if you ask those who are very profit conscious, pricing is the most effective, the most important, because that's the only revenue, money-making variable within the mix. The rest of them are all cost centers, So it is very, very important that we take our price functions seriously. Now, can somebody tell us how they do pricing in their area, regardless of whether you are in the bank or insurance or whatever sector you are? How do you go about pricing? Who can tell us? How do you price your goods or services?
So I work in a marketing agency.
Yeah.
And I specialize in the digital department. So when we are costing something for a potential client, what we do is we break down the entirety of the job we have to do.
That's correct.
Into six parts. So we have the creative design part, we have the account management, we have media buying, tracking and reporting. So all those different elements of the entire job we are doing for them are broken into its separate parts.
That's correct.
Then we price that work according to the estimated hours. So for example, if we are telling them that we'll be giving them 40 hours of week, 40 hours a week worth of creative work, then we will price that according to the hours. If we say we are going to give you 20 hours of account management work, we'll price it according to the hours. And then that way, when we have everything broken down into its various units, it's easier for us to negotiate, because the clients may say, okay, we don't need 40 hours of creative design, but we would like more hours put into perhaps tracking and reporting. So then it's easier for us to move the budget around to suit their needs. If they want to reduce it or even increase it, there's a baseline for us to start with.
Excellent. Amazing. All right. Thank you, Michael. Let me ask you one question. Now, the hourly determination, what other factors or variables also determine that our charges?
I don't think I'm very clear on the question. As in, aside from time, what else?
Yeah. So you subdivided, or you have deconstructed the entire service into 6 parts, and each part is charged according to the man hours, isn't it? Okay.
Yes.
So the determination of that man hour variable cost, on man hour cost that you determine, what factors also determine that?
Okay, so I think the main 2 factors, well, I don't know about main, but I know that in the company that I work with, 2 other things that we look at are, 1, the quality of the work that is needed. So for example, certain clients may need more 3D video than they may need 2D stills. So because we know that more work goes into the quality of work that we're about to give them, that would be priced higher. Another thing that we do is sometimes you have to look at the clients in question, because the same thing that we will do for Coca-Cola and maybe charge them about 1,000 cedis, we will probably charge maybe a Coco King or maybe a Kaiser drinks, maybe like 600. Of the fact that we know, we have a fair idea of what the budgets that these clients have are. So since it is important for us to work with big companies and small ones as well.
Excellent.
We know that we can't charge the same price to everybody, even though it may be the same thing.
Excellent. So there are some price differentials, according to the kind of clients, you have. A fantastic point. Who else can tell us how they price in their area?
Okay, Doc.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I try?
Yes.
Okay. So we obviously have varied products and services. So let me just take sample some. If we look at selling forex, for instance, when someone has an FCA account, or even if they have a forex account, and receive transfers into their account, obviously they didn't deposit the physical dollar or other foreign currencies. So if the person is insisting on receiving hard cash, what we do, obviously we also buy from BOG, or we also buy at cost. So for instance, at BOG, you pay 2% of whatever you are buying from them.
Yeah.
And so to also make a margin, we add a 0.5.
Yeah.
So when someone needs foreign cash of that nature, then we charge 2.5 of the amount they are trying to withdraw. I mean, I think some banks also do 3% and all that. So that is for such a transaction. Now, for instance, someone also wants to make an outward transfer. We charge 0.75 of the amount they want to transfer, or a minimum of $30 or £15 or 20 euros. That is the commission for the bank. And then we have our SWIFT charges, which is flat $25. And then the corresponding bank charges too depends on whether the transfer is going to the US, which obviously our corresponding bank is in the US, so it's a bit lower. But if it's in other countries, obviously the routing, we charge a little bit more. So we just look at the nature of the transactions and then see where we can cover our cost and make a small margin on it. So that is just for two of
products.
So now if we also want to look at, let's say, a current account, for instance, the corporate ones, we obviously have SMEs, and then we have the normal corporate accounts. Now for the SMEs, it's been tiered. If someone's over is up to 10,000 for the month, then the minimum of 10 CDs we charge the person. Now between 10,000 to 30,000, then we charge 30 CDs. If it exceeds 30,000 and upwards, then we charge 50. So it's been tiered according to the turnover rate. Because initially we were doing cost, the COT, the usual COT.
Yeah.
Customers were complaining they were being charged too much. So we had to arrive at something that would not put us in a loss position, but at least would be favorable for the customers. So basically, these are just a few of the services we provide and the type of charges we offer.
Excellent. Good point. Thank you. Yeah. Any other ideas? Any other ideas? Okay. So we realized that, I mean, these two frameworks, that's Michael's framework and then the one that Gilbert just explained. You could see that almost the frameworks are the same and the kind of variables that actually go into it. One, we're looking at the characteristics of the consumer or the consumer typology. Two, you're looking at, the cost, estimate or the cost build-up of the organization. But you realize that there was a slight difference from Gilbert's, framework, where there was a reference made to the regulator or, the source, which is the Bank of Ghana. So because financial services do not produce their own product, but they only provide services, there is a price regulatory framework where the regulator actually has a price floor and then a price ceiling. I'm sure that most of the banks in Ghana, there's a particular limit of pricing that they cannot actually exceed, even barring competition, all right? Because of competition, you may not actually go over a particular price. But even if you decide to go up, because of the regulator, there's a certain ceiling that you cannot actually go, all right? But when it comes to ordinary services, non-regulated services, let me put it that way, just like what Michael explained, there is no ceiling, and there is no price floor as well. But the ceiling and the price floor that actually exist are actually existing as a result of the market and its response, all right? Because there's a level or a limit that you can go that would make you competitive or make you appealing to the market. So there are market laws, or the market has actually erected certain barriers that would actually regulate even your pricing, but not necessarily as an official or formal regulatory framework as we have in the financial services. So if you look into the financial services pricing, we say that you have a tripod, of a price determinant. One, the cost incurred by the customer and the service providers, the cost of money, for example. Competition, which is the responses from other brands, and then of course the customer demand. That is the characteristics of the customer, the typology of the customer. So you heard Michael saying, depending on the type of customer, whether you're a Coca-Cola or whether you're a Coca-Cane, would actually factor into their price estimate. So these three, are the tripod of cost determining or underpinning pricing strategies, all right? That is cost incurred by the customer or the service provider, competition, and then of course the demand, as in, the customer and their willingness or the ability to actually pay. So in pricing, we are considering these three, factors, before we actually make our determination. And so, yeah.
I also wanted to add something.
Yeah.
But there are also bundle fees, you see, to gain a competitive edge.
Yeah.
Over our competitors. We have some product that we have bundle. We have my bank. We have something we call ultimate account.
Mm-hmm.
So that one is a bundle fee. You paying the 27,000. It comes with packages, insurance for your funeral, your two parents, and all.
That's right.
Everything is bundled.
Mm-hmm.
And you pay hospital cashback. There are a lot of benefits. All your digital products are free and all, so that we do these things to attract people to come into the segment.
Exactly. So that's a response to competition, and to also make it attractive.
Even with the space is enormous. With the transfer thing that Gilbert was talking about, we waived the $25 for our prestige and premier customers.
Wow.
So it's really an advantage, and it makes the product attractive for other people to also enroll on them.
Okay. All right, Joseph.
Corey, please. Please just the slide before this one.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. I even haven't sent you guys the other slides I told you about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one.
So cost incurred by the customer and service providers, the cost of money, for example. I'm not too clear on this one. I was thinking of cost incurred by the service provider, but not the customer.
Yeah. When you are actually having a price consideration, you want to. So in marketing, we say that, or in relationship marketing, we say that you convert the 4 P's to the 4 C's. All right. So that you can appreciate the effort that the customer is actually making. So sometimes you want to actually understand whether the cost that the customer is actually incurring as a result of accessing your product, all right, is so dear or it's so minimal that it could actually influence or become a barrier, to accessing your product. Are you with me? Okay. So when you factor that cost, in, because let's say, for example, if your shop is in Accra Mall, right? Yeah. And that's where you are. Obviously, by looking at your cost build-ups, you factored in only the things that actually concerns your production, etc. All right. Now, here's the case. Perhaps majority of your customers who are actually coming in are having to make a journey of, let's say, 10 Ghana cedis each. Are you with me? Now, that 10 Ghana cedis each journey that they have to make, is that a barrier to them accessing your product? And can that actually deter them from accessing and therefore go to a competitor? Are you with me? So in most cases, you are not only looking at the supply side, factors that actually build up the cost and as a result use it to determine the pricing. But also some point you're looking at to what extent is the consumer going in order that they can access your product, and must you do something about that so that it makes it attractive? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're called about the cost incurred by the customer. Okay, fantastic question. All right.
Okay.
Please.
Sorry. Okay. So the second one.
Yeah.
Competition.
Yeah.
I was thinking of charges in respect of competing products. Does it make sense? I mean, with regards to this point.
Yeah.
Charges
Right.
of competing.
So we are looking at the determinants of the market. What is the market reaction? You get it? So just like Bridget was talking about the bundling, majority of businesses, especially financial services, move into bundling as a result of responding to competition. All right. So you are actually monitoring what the competition is doing, i.e., is the competition, pegging pricing at 100 Ghana cedis. If competition is pegging pricing at 100 Ghana cedis, to what extent would your 120 Ghana cedis be appealing to consumers or be a barrier? Are you with me? So again, you are shadowing what competitors are doing as another variable in your price determination. All right. And then of course, the demand, that is the consumers or the customer's ability to afford, your product is also a consideration. So we're looking at clearly what are some of the considerations you should actually take or you should, come to in order to determine that your product is X and Y pricing. All right. Of course, the idea of the cost build-up, that is the the production cost others, that one is the variables that you put together, all right, in determining. But having actually understood how much does it cost you to produce in order that you add your markup, that alone is not enough because you could price yourself out of the market. Are you with me? So you've got to also have these considerations in mind. And that's why we're saying the tripod of cost underpinning pricing strategies. So these would, inform you what kind of strategy of pricing must you actually adopt. And when we go down, you will see that there will be about 4 strategies for determining cost, or pricing, for a financial services. But we're saying that before you come to that particular strategies for price determination, what are some of the things that you must consider? And in fact, it goes beyond these 3 if you actually look into it. I mean, sometimes the idea of ethics, ethical consumption, etc., they come in. Are you with me? Especially in companies that are very value-laden or value-driven, all right? When the business realizes that they are making too much money, ethical consideration come in, and they say, okay, why don't we actually give away some of our profits in order that customers can actually benefit? So in some businesses, belief or value set can even come in terms of their, underpinnings of price strategy. Are you with me?
The last statement, is that value set?
Yeah, the value sets, as in the things that actually govern somebody's moral compass. You know, there are some businesses whose owners actually believe in, you know, ethical consumption, ethical practices. All right, and so if they think that they are making too much money, they feel uncomfortable, you know, because they have certain principles that actually govern the way they do things. Are you with me? Does it make sense to you, Joseph? Hello, Joseph. Have we lost you? Joseph? Hello? Have I lost you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're breaking for some time.
Okay. So is it understood?
Yes. What about value of the product?
Yes. So when it comes to the value of the product, that's what we're talking about, the customer demand. All right. That is, how does, you know, the customer actually perceive, okay, you know, how does the customer perceive the product and whether they think is worth that amount. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good point. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Okay. So what do you think about this? Monthly fees for your check account, cost of 500,000 term life insurance policy, the fees for 2-hour financial advising session, prime interest rate for your savings, etc. So this is almost like what, you know, Michael was actually, you know, telling us about the breakdown of their services into component parts, and each of these component parts actually are priced, or, you know, a certain amount is allocated to them in order that they come to the bulk pack, isn't it? So the same way in financial services, you know, the pricing actually looks at these variables, all right? Because don't forget, a check account, all right, or a current account has a checkbook, or may have a checkbook, may have a what do you call, a Visa card, or, you know, a card. They also may have other, you know, sort of, you know, pieces of services attached to them, all right, including maybe a relationship manager, etc. So all these things, all these variables must be costed in order that you come to a final conclusion of how much, you know, that particular service is. But of course, they are all, you know, cost oriented, i.e., looking at how much does it cost you to maintain one relationship manager, how much does it cost you to produce one, you know, what do you call, checkbook of, let's say, 20 leaflets. All right, how much does it cost you to maintain one, what do you call, those who sit on the booth, what's their name? The clerks, all right? So you're looking at all these. Now, the complexity of financial services prices are these, as we're going to actually outline them. If you look at auto lease, for example, all right? Now, the auto lease will have, just like Michael explained, if you have to break down auto lease as one product, but then decompose it or deconstruct that auto lease, you realize that there's a monthly, you know, of course, you have the total month, which could be 35 months, or let's say 24 months, or whatever, all right? But also you have what do you call monthly payment, all right? You have how much somebody can pay if they want to make a down payment. You have wear and tear, all right, penalties, etc. So you have so many variables that actually come together to make, you know, the cost of auto lease. If you take home insurance, for example, again, you have the premium, you have dwelling coverage, you have personal property coverage, you have payment cycles, living expenses, liability coverage, guest medical expenses, so many other, you know, attributes or variables. So is mortgage, and so is check account. So before you actually price, you know, you have to identify what are the specific attributes or what are the specific variables that add up to the product. So you've got to deconstruct the product or break the product down into pieces, all right, and use that as your pricing framework. So if you take teaching, for example, I mean, you look at the classroom, you look at faculty, you look at library, you look at support services like security on campus, you look at the cleaners, you look at all those things and how much you're spending on them before you put them together to understand how much are you spending to have all these services put together, divided by the number of students that these services are supporting in order to determine someone's school fees, isn't it? So the point is that you cannot price a financial product without looking at all these factors, including the risks that the customer actually poses, or the functionality of the economy, because you know that when the interest rate changes, obviously the performance of the product must change as well, isn't it? So you have to actually make all these determinations before you can actually come to a price. All right, does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, now challenges in pricing financial services. It is not as easy as Michael actually put it when we are pricing products and services. For financial services, there are a lot of challenges in it, because if you look at the way, let's say, for example, a bank operates, all right? Obviously, you would have the tellers, all right, who are actually managing, current account. The same tellers are managing savings account, isn't it? The same tellers will be serving somebody who is coming for a loan inquiry, all right, before they move to maybe a relationship manager. You guys, you can actually, even tell me better than, say it better than I'm doing. The same tellers may be taking inquiries for, let's say, letter of credit before they send them to the appropriate quarters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you have the relationship manager occupying perhaps the same space as the teller, at least from what I see at at APSA in Legon. So where the teller is, or the tellers are, and where the RM are, you have air conditions that are actually controlling that space, isn't it? And then you have perhaps the same lighting system. So let's assume that you want to cost something like a letter of credit, or let's say you want to cost something like loans, and you are using variables that are associated to the loan officers or the officers who are actually dealing with loans, all right? Now, you can talk about their salary, all right, as one variable. And then perhaps you can talk about the FOSCAP or the notebooks that are using to record, or the systems that are being used to record the loan facilities, all right? You can talk about the cost of the people who actually visit these customers to chase them for repayment, all right? All these people, perhaps you can identify them neatly. What about the services such as the inquiries that people come and make? They're making it from the teller. What about the air condition that all of them are using at the same time? What about the lighting system that all of them are using at the same time? How do you apportion those costs amongst those departments, under the same umbrella? Becomes an issue. So you realize that the multifaceted nature of, financial, services makes it difficult for you to evenly, or for you to, clearly allocate costs to their centers or to their respective cost centers in order to come out with a price that is actually reflective of what they have consumed from the system. Are you with me? All right. Yeah. So that's why we say that in pricing financial services, cost allocation is very difficult, because in other services, it is easy to attribute cost to their centers and to say that Department A has consumed X and Y, and therefore you can add it to their cost build-up and then determine the price. In financial services, majority of the department or the system are actually intertwined, and their services complement each other. So when it comes to allocation, or finally allocating cost to each department, it's a little bit, of a problem. So you find an issue there. Of course, quantifying cost may be very difficult, as we're actually talking about, and quantifying profit associated with a given client is also difficult due to the bundled relationship, as I said. So if, for example, you have made let's say 100,000 cedis profit out of loans, all right, you can't actually argue that 100,000 cedis profit that you made is just as a result of your loan portfolio, all right, because other services might have actually contributed to that particular loan facility. So it makes it difficult to even quantify and actually allocate the profitability and where it's coming from. And then, of course, price and value are actually a function of economic conditions, right? So if, for example, you anticipate that you're going to make, 100,000 for the first quarter, which in your estimation or in your forecast, you've been able to determine. Know that 100,000, it is not as a function of how well you perform, all right? So as a bank or as a financial organization, you may be performing well, but it is highly dependent on the economic or the microeconomic situations. So if for some reason the city is dancing, certainly is going to impact on your performance, just as we've seen or we are witnessing now with COVID, all right? So all those projections that you made, because of externalities like COVID, majority of you are going to experience, non-performing loan issues. Not as a result of your managerial inefficiencies, but as a result of externalities, all right? So price and value are actually a function of the wider economic conditions, which predominantly will be out of your control. And that actually affects the pricing, because currently as we speak, if you experience non-performing loans a lot, certainly you have to actually retrieve that from other sources, which means that there must be a cost build-up in other products and services that you provide. And then quality is elusive and may be intangible, as we just explained, because of the economic conditions. And then customer price memory is very weak. Obviously, we did the heuristics in the just ended lecture yesterday, and we realized that customers, as a result of mental arithmetic and all that, could have a very limited ability to appreciate numbers, and so appreciate price. So their memories on price could be very weak in terms of their evaluation and assessment of it. And potential channel conflict in pricing, of course, if you are using brokers or you are using agencies, etc., there could be a conflict in pricing. And even in terms of what we call bank assurance, there could also be potential conflict in pricing as well. And lastly is the regulator constraint. Just as we explained, the regulator is going to have a price ceiling and a price floor, which would actually constrain you from moving beyond that. So even if you have so much money as a business and you want to beat competition by slashing your prices to a very minimum, because of regulator, you may not be able to go beyond what the regulator's limit is. All right. I hope it's clear on the challenges. All right. Any questions or contribution for that? Yeah? Questions or contributions? Okay. Now let's look at the role of pricing. Yeah.
The insurance fee too. Sometimes it doesn't cost that much.
Which one is that?
1 CD.
Which one is that?
The education plan.
All right, the education plan. All right. So it doesn't cost you guys much.
No, we charge the customer 1 CD.
1 cedi.
Yes, 1 cedi. Then the person, maybe assuming the person is doing 500, so we will charge 501. That's all. So the bank fee is just 1 cedi.
Oh, really? But 1 cedi multiplied by how many customers? Quite a lot, isn't it?
Oh.
All right. That's a good point anyway, because obviously per branch, isn't it? So, fine. Anyway, so let's look at the role of price in financial services. Now, pricing, even not only in financial services, but generally, play these 3 key roles, isn't it? They are a source of revenue, as we said, all right? Pricing is also a signal to the competition, and then a signal of quality. Who can explain the last 2? Obviously, the first one is clear. The last 2. Yeah?
I'd like to attempt the third one. The second one, I'm not very sure.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but then I don't know the exact psychological reasons for it. But then ostentatious goods, or even if they are not as highly classed as an ostentatious good, but any good that is of quality is usually high price. And I think it's been done so often that we have come to equate price to quality. So most of the times, if something is costly, before we even do the research to find out the material that went into it or the expertise, we just assume that it is of high quality.
Of course. You remember when you cited your example to say that depending on the quality of the work that the customer or the client expects, all right, you use that to build up your price as well, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So it's a common what do you call principle that he who asks more, actually you expect more from them, isn't it? So long as you are demanding more, the expectation that you are equally giving out more in terms of quality is high. So and there are certain, indicators, or there are certain signals that the consumer is looking at in terms of what they call quality. And once those signals are clear, certainly they are prepared to pay higher, all right? So we're saying that price is actually a determinant of quality. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, Lauta, yeah. No, the video will be available, so I'm sure you can follow it. Okay. So yeah, the issue is that once that the customer or the client actually sees certain markers, isn't it? They see certain markers, they could determine that, indeed the price that is actually going with the product is right, isn't it? So over time, we have come to associate price, with quality. And so there are certain products like, certain luxury goods, luxury brands, that you do not expect the price to actually go below certain mark. Immediately it does that, what you're doing is that you're weakening the brand, all right? So there is this fashion good that there's a story, I cannot substantiate the story, but it's anecdotal. They say that particular brand, when they move, it's about fashion, it's a fashion, bags, etc. When it goes into the trade, it goes into the market, all right? And the distributors or the retailers are not able to sell all within a particular period. They are supposed to go back to the factory. And when they go back to the factory or they go back to the company does not put it, there are some companies who have actually downstream market. So that is original to, what do you call, Wenyin low, those TS, thermal station type of, market. So there are some businesses or some product that actually do that. So once the product does not sell in the mainstream market, then it goes to the secondary market. But with this particular brand, do not allow it to go to the secondary market, because if you buy that brand, let's say 100,000 Ghana cedis, and then in your Mercedes-Benz, you see that somebody also is jumping from a trotro and then holding the same bag, I'm sure you're going to be annoyed that how come that, this person of this particular class is holding, this kind of bag. And because of that, they don't allow it to go through the second, channels, all right? They rather would burn it. I don't know how far it's true. I have to actually confirm that story. So it tells you that there is a particular marker, or there is a perception about that brand and its quality. And so they would not allow it to go into that secondary market that could actually downplay or water down the quality from that. It's also the case that when you look at the luxury cars like Mercedes and BMW, no matter how old they are, there's certain price range that you are expected to buy it from. So you would see that amongst the used cars, you still have Mercedes and then BMW's prices very high because of the nature of the relationship between price and quality construct. So yeah, you're right in that. What about competition? Who can explain it?
I think competition in the sense that most people are in the sense that your pricing can make you ahead of the competition or make you behind the competition.
Yeah.
Most customers are price sensitive. Most customers are price sensitive in the sense that people will patronize your price if they feel it's reasonably priced, especially when it matches the quality.
Yeah.
But may refuse your brand if they feel your pricing is high, even with the same quality as a reasonably priced one.
Yeah.
So pricing is quite dicey in pulling people to your brand or making them repel your brand.
That's right. So pricing actually instigates the competition. And I mean, typical example is what you see in the market, where whenever you see that, maybe Airtel Tigo have done certain promotions, MTN want to respond quickly, because if they don't, perhaps it could actually shift the market to their end. And at the same time, too, you see that MTN will be doing certain things, and then Airtel Tigo would actually have to respond to that, because pricing actually signals how the market is moving. And I remember I was on a committee that were looking at tuition fees, and especially for international students, and how we're supposed to respond to KNUST. I mean, there is a huge competition between Legon and KNUST on this particular conversation that we're having. But one of the comments that I made was that we should not actually make sure that we should not actually kind of be fixated on KNUST tuition fee to the extent that we may drop and people may think that we have actually ceded the leadership to KNUST, all right? Because at a certain price point, if you drop, people may think that the one that has a higher fees is the best school, all right? But we're not prepared to drop the leadership into the hands of KNUST. Well, that's my view, my opinion. Right? So in that sense, you want to maintain certain price equilibrium, all right, in terms of the competition, in order that to actually sound that you are still the leader of the market, right? And just like Kukwa said, depending on the quality of your product and its its related price or its commensurate price, if you don't take care, people would actually rate the competitor as higher than yours because of the price point that you're using. So you always have to be measured in the way you determine price. Otherwise, it can sound that, maybe you have now reduced quality, all right? So if, for example, Legon's tuition fee is always 1,000 Ghana, KNUST is always 950, all right? And all of a sudden, another period, somebody sees the Legon tuition fee is now 850. To the person, it could suggest that perhaps we have dropped certain quality levels. And don't forget, quality is a function of the build-ups, all right, or the inputs that you put into the product or the services in order to come to the output or the certain level. And those inputs have cost implications. So immediately you drop the price, there's an assumption that you have also removed certain inputs from the product. And that's why you've been able to reduce the price, all right? And so price, quality, and competition are actually intertwined. They have that close relationship that if you don't price well, it could suggest something negative against your brand. And of course, if you don't price well too, you could actually drive away customers from you, and you may not, also make money or be able to be competitive in the market. Is that clear?
Yes. And Kobe,
yeah.
I wanted to say that the quality too, you can refer it with the service given.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone is paying 40 cedis to be a prestige customer,
mm-hmm.
then there should be a personal touch to the service the person is receiving.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. So, and people opt for that without even complaining because of the value of the service providing.
Excellent.
They provide. So
excellent. Yeah.
Very key.
Yeah, great point. So you could even add the fourth construct, all right, which is the relationship building. Just as Bridget is talking about. A role of the pricing, or one of the rules of the pricing, is also to build relationships, all right? So you could actually have
Kobe, please, I have a question.
Yeah, Dora, go on.
Yeah, please, I want to find out. You're saying we shouldn't price too low so we don't compromise on quality.
Mm-hmm. That is depending on the factors that we are considering, or factors under consideration.
Okay, so let's assume it's a small business. What is the best way to go about it? How do you price so you wouldn't drive people away and not give your clients to other competitors as well?
Okay, so we'll come to the pricing strategies, which will be the next 2 slides, but let me answer that question for you. So when you're a small business, one of the key things that you shouldn't lose sight of is your price build-up, all right? The factors that contribute to the output of the product. So you have to be almost like a hawkish eye to identify almost every bit of your inputs, all right? So how much does it cost for your raw material? You have to note it down. What are the staffing costs? You have to note it down. Warehousing or storage, you have to note it down. So for small business, you must be as detailed as possible when it comes to your cost build-ups, all right? The factors that actually go into the making of the product. Now, once you have established that, build-ups, or we have established that itemized costings, then the question is your product a very unique product that people will be prepared to pay extra, or it is just like everybody else? Are you with me? If the answer is that it's a so unique product that people are prepared to pay extra, that determination cannot be done just with your thinking or with your gut alone, because it may be so special a product to you, but it's not special to a lot of customers. So what you want to do is that you want to check with customers whether indeed the product is of a special kind, amongst the competitors. If it's a special kind among the competitors, apart from the cost builder, are people ready to pay extra amount of money to have it? If the answer is yes, it means that you don't necessarily have to determine your profit or your markup or margin, we call it, say after the cost, then you say, oh, you want a margin of 10%, and that becomes your profit. It means that you are pricing yourself low because you have opportunity to move the price a little bit higher because people are ready to pay it. Are you following, Dora?
Yes, Kobe, please, I am.
So once you have identified that beyond the cost and beyond maybe the 10% profit that you're adding, people are prepared to pay extra 2% on it. You do not have to hesitate. You have to go ahead to actually add that. And that is when you are building sustainable, business, because then you're building the brand and you're also making the right amount of money to support the brand quality. Make sure that that extra 2 cedis that you are acquiring or extra 2% that you are getting as a result of premium pricing shouldn't be used as part of your profitability. It has to be used to support the brand, to make it much more unique, because people are paying for the uniqueness of it. And the sustainability of that uniqueness is very, very important.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah. We'll come to more detail of the pricing so that you get a lot of ideas.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you. So just as Bridget said, sometimes we price, and that's one of the relationships or the rules of pricing. Sometimes we price not because for revenue, not because for competition, not because of quality, but because of relationship, all right? And that is why sometimes you see loyalty schemes, right? Some companies or some providers will do loyalty scheme. That loyalty scheme per itself, per one transaction, is actually costing them. But in a long-term perspective, they're gaining, all right? They're gaining on it because they're able to hold the customer long-term. And once you do that long-term relationship, it means that you are making more gains than it costing you per transaction. So one of the role of pricing is also about what? Relationship building and relationship management, all right? Sometimes you can start with a customer. The customer is first time coming to you. You said, oh, and we do it in a normal, parlance. Oh, because you're a first time customer, I'll give you this so that you will be with me for long, all right? Then the person is happy. Then the transaction keeps going. Over time, because you're keeping the customer over time, you're making, gains in terms of, the idea that you are with a customer for a very long time. So price could also be a relationship builder or relationship, management tool, all right? Not only these three. Are you with me? All right. Now, when we look at the objective for pricing or objectives, for financial services pricing, obviously, as we discussed earlier on, we use pricing to increase market share, all right? So when you're using pricing to increase market share, sometimes you want to peg your price a little bit below the competitor. Again, it depends on the circumstances, all right? A little bit below the competitor or just about the same with a competitor, but maybe with a higher value or a higher quality. Now, that would swing the competition to your side. So in market building, when you want to build the market share, you have to manipulate the price in a way that the product would offer more value to the customer, and it will be much more competitive against the competitors' offering. But then also the price, it's at a level that you may not, or it may not cost you that much because of the economies of scale, all right? So when you want to increase market share, you price at a certain level to get you more people. And the more people you get can offset the per unit cost that you have incurred. And as a result, making gains, all right? We also use price for profit generation. And just as I was telling, Dora, for profit generation, it means that you are pricing, that is price is what? Greater than cost, all right? It means that you're pricing by taking into consideration all your cost buildup plus your margin of profit or profit margin, let's say 10%. So if the item, producing the item cost you 20 Ghana cedis in total, then your pricing will be 20 Ghana cedis plus 10% of the cost base, and that will become your price. In that sense, you are only generating profit once the product is going. But there's also what we call profit maximization. And that is where I was explaining to Dora that if the customers think that your product is so unique and are prepared to pay extra, you do not only consider your margin, profit margin of 10%, but you also consider the extra that the consumer is prepared to pay, which is the extra 2%. And that is what we call your maximizing profit. But you see, profit maximization itself, people sometimes get it wrong by adding it to their profit, of the business. That extra has to be used to support the brand in terms of advertising that is staying relevant in the people's minds, in terms of research, so having a continuous R&D to add more value to the product, and then in terms of customer value, so doing more of loyalty schemes, etc., to keep the relationship between you and the customer going. So when you have a profit maximization opportunity, you have to actually separate your actual profit, which is in the profit generation, from the premium price or the premium profit that, or the extra profit that you added, which is just about 2 cedis, and make sure that that 2% or 2 cedis is being used to support the product or the service to maintain its leadership. Are you clear on this one? Is that clear? Yeah. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. All right. So let's look at the methods for financial services pricing methods. All right. So just as we were discussing earlier, there are 4, methods for pricing, and the regulation pricing is what Gilbert was explaining earlier on, where, there's the base. So for regulation pricing in financial services, you're looking at how much is do you call it prime rate, right? Is it prime rate, Bridget? Or what's the name of the cost of money between the banks and then the central bank, or amongst yourselves? What do you call it?
The central.
Yeah, between the central bank and the bank, the cost of money.
Is it the
It's the base rate, right?
between the customer and the bank?
Yeah.
Yeah, the base rate.
The base rate, and that's
But the base rate is based on the lending.
Yeah,
the rates the banks can lend.
So yeah, explain to us the differences.
The base rate.
And then the lending rate.
Coming.
Yes. The
and
base
the lending. Okay, so the base rate is the rate. It's almost the same thing. It's just that the base rate is the threshold where every bank should peg its lending rate at. You shouldn't go beyond that.
So that's the regulation.
It's given to every bank. So based on that, the banks also strategize. Yes. So they also strategize around that, make it their lending rate for their customers.
Excellent. Okay.
So
is it a
reference? Then the bank's own rate that they add to them.
Okay. Is it the same as between you and the central bank?
Kobe.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
I'm saying that is it the same as between you and the central bank? The cost of money.
No, you see, they give us their cost, the base that relationship with them. The one we add on to it becomes our own rate. So we add it to it, then it's the basis, the rate that we can also lend to our customers.
Okay.
So if we go higher than that, they can punish us.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I quite remember at a certain time and they were punishing us.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to overprice and you don't have to also underprice so that you stay in competition.
That's correct. So that's the regulation.
Hello, Kobe.
Yeah, go back.
Hello, Kobe.
Yeah, go back.
So, just further to what Bridget is saying. So recently, that is what has been modified to arrive at the Ghana reference rate we are talking about. So, you know, the monetary policy always meets on. So let's say if we are using current figures, in June, the policy rate was arrived at 14.5. Now, there's a cocktail of things the reference rate. For instance, there is the interbank rate, which is around 13.7 something. I think it's 13.72, or that's a recent thing. Then Treasury bill rate also comes in. Usually they use the 91-day Treasury bill rate, around 13 point something now. Then they have the cash reserve issue. At first, remember it was 10%. Because of the COVID, they reduced it to 8% so that it could allow banks to be able to lend more. Then they have the cash involved, which is also a percentage. So when they mix these things up, then they come form the Ghana reference rate is 14.75. So this 14.75, as Bridget was explaining, becomes the baseline, the yardstick for every bank to now work with. Then, depending on how we risk profile a customer, then we work with that to now arrive at the final interest rate that we give.
Excellent. Okay, so good point. So that 14.75 becomes a regulation-based pricing, right? Which almost every institution, every institution is supposed to work within. So there's the floor and then the ceiling. That becomes the regulation-based pricing, all right? So in every regulation-based pricing, if you look at, you know, sectors like, you know, financial services, you know, like banks, insurance, you know, they all have these regulation-based, you know, pricing. When you move into, you know, essentials like water, electricity, all those, you know, kind of services are actually regulation-based. You know, their pricing is regulation-based. And it is because of their character of their product and services, all right? Because of the character of the product and services. They have, you know, government actually regulates, you know, the pricing in order to make sure that government will produce or will provide the essential services to the people. Now, that's completely different from other sectors where, but you see, the regulation base is also taken into consideration, you know, the cost, you know, build-ups. And of course, that's why that becomes the basis on which the banks will actually, you know, work around the other, pricing schemes. And that's where the cost-based pricing comes in. So no bank or no financial organization can actually work with only the regulation-based pricing alone, all right? So that becomes your basis. And then you look at your, then you look at your cost-based pricing, i.e., you're identifying your cost centers, your cost items, you know, or the inputs, you know, all the things that you actually, you know, putting in for value addition, all right? You identify them, and then that, you know, it's added to the regulation, you know, pricing in order to actually price appropriately for you to either be profit, you know, generation or be profit maximization, all right? And then, of course, another, you know, pricing method that you're looking at is parity pricing. Maybe we have to go through the slides so that you can actually look at. So the regulation-based pricing, as we said, the regulator sets the price, and then, of course, the service providers actually work within those price perimeters. Now, the cost-based pricing, so like as we discussed, you look at your cost items, and then you add your markup, all right? So you look at the calculation, for example. Maybe let's look at this example. I mean, you can see that it's been worked out already. So you have 100,000 active accounts, which is active customers, all right? Average monthly transaction cost per account is 1 cedi. So just as Bridget was talking about the education policy, all right? So the cost of that policy per account is 1 cedi. And then the overhead and fixed cost per branch is 400,000. So overhead and fixed costs will include salary, all right, and other things, maybe lightning, all those things. That is 400,000 per month. So in your total cost, and Dora, I think you'll be interested in this one, right? So your total,
yes, please.
Yeah, your total cost become your monthly, average monthly transaction cost plus your overhead and fixed cost. And that will give you your total cost. So know that the transaction cost actually incurred includes, the provisioning of a relationship manager, because remember that the relationship manager's activity is geared towards the account holders, isn't it? The relationship manager is also using a computer. The relationship manager is also using certain systems. So all those ones, and that's why we're talking about the difficulty in actually identifying the cost centers for institutional like financial services, because they could also appear at the overhead and fixed cost section. But it is up to the company to be able to separate them, that in order that it would make sense. So, but the simple calculation is that your transaction cost plus your overhead and fixed cost will give you the total cost, all right? Which means 400,000, plus your, remember the $1 here, the $1 here is actually per account. So if you multiply the $1 by the total account, which is 100,000, that gives you your, 400,000 there. And then, that gives you 100,000, sorry, plus the 400,000, which is overhead and fixed cost. And that gives you 500,000 per month. Now, if you divide that 500,000 per month, they say if more, less divides, if less, more divides. Yeah, I hope you haven't forgotten that simple. You haven't forgotten it, right? If more, less divides, if less, more divides. So, yeah. So if you divide the 500,000, if you divide the 500,000 by 100,000, then you are getting per month cost. You are getting $5, all right, which is your average cost per month. Then we are saying that the markup, which is your profit, is actually determined by you, all right? And that's where sometimes we say business people like money, because some people, per their nature, they want more money. There are some people who will exercise restraint, all right, and want to do reasonably price. But you see, apart from our own feelings, we are also looking at how much is the market charging or competitor charging. So apart from your feeling of wanting to make money, there is also a check of the market, in order for you to determine how much will be your markup, which is your profit margin. So if we say that, okay, let's say a markup of 60%, which means that 60% on that $5, dollars, which is the average cost per the account, that becomes your profit, all right? So you add that 60% to the, the cost per month, and then you get what? 8 cedis. 8 cedis, that is your price, how much you're pricing it. So if the customer buys the item at 8 cedis, what you do is you minus your average cost, which was 5 cedis, out of that, and then you get 3 cedis as your profit. Now, that 5 cedis, where does it go? It goes back into the business, isn't it? Because that's where it belongs. And then the profit, you decide whether you want to save some or you want to plow back some into your business, isn't it? And as Dora, as you asked me, this is a very simple, price determinant that almost every small business must be able to do, to be able to be sustainable. Majority of times, what we see is that small businesses do mental accounting or mental arithmetic, like what we saw yesterday. They in their heads, they know how much it's costing them, but they would actually have a feeling of how much they want to add. And then when they get the money, they can't even determine how much is actually the average cost and how much of it is actually a profitability. And that's why some people end up chopping their capital, because they're not able to do this separation well. So he's actually taking 10 Ghana cedis, or let's say 6 Ghana cedis from the 8 cedis, forgetting that a part of it is what, a part of his, what do you call, capital is what he's actually taking out. Do you get it? All right. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes, please.
All right.
Yes,
Good.
please.
All right. So, I mean, this is a common price thing that we can do. Now, let's look at the limitations of the cost-based pricing. All right. Now, if you do cost-based pricing, there are a lot of limitations to it, because you are assuming that allocation of fixed costs across multiple services is difficult, like we were saying. You know, sometimes there are certain costs, you know, that you are not able to derive exactly where they belong. So they could belong to two multiple, you know, items, cost items, and you may count it twice. Just like I was talking about the relationship manager, you know, being part of the transaction cost, at the same time being part of the overhead and then fixed cost. So you may count one particular cost item twice, and that could overhaul your pricing and therefore make you expensive. So sometimes you would have to, you know, drill down well in order that you can allocate the cost centers appropriately. And then also, if you look at the explanation that we had, we have assumed that there's a fixed demand for our services. All right. So fixed demand for services assumed to exist at all price levels, forgetting that there are certain price levels that the demand could actually slow. So if you look at this example, we are assuming that if we keep the pricing at $8, we'll still keep 100,000 active accounts. But little would you know that, in fact, that could actually affect the, you know, the number of accounts who are actually coming in because they think that you're expensive. So at certain price points, you know, you may keep the total, you know, customers, or you may lose some of them. And then, of course, we assume that economic circumstances will be the same, but it won't, because we don't have control over it, all right? So look at COVID now. Almost all the price decisions that you might have actually made prior to COVID are actually been thrown out of the window. Do you get it? So when you are using cost-based pricing, we are assuming that everything is constant, but it may not be constant. There is volatility in the system, all right? So we've got to be mindful of that and be sure that you do not even incur more cost as a result of holding the items in warehouse. So when the situation like COVID happens, meanwhile you have stock, you know, in your warehouse that could cost you. You couldn't actually say that because the cost buildup was 5 Ghana cedis and you're looking at profitability for 60% markup, so you will still maintain your price at 8 Ghana cedis. You may be in more debt because the goods may not move. In that instance, like COVID, you then have to revise your pricing scheme to reflect the realities of the time, and which just like what the banks are actually doing now, all right? So if you do not revise your pricing scheme to reflect the times, you may actually incur more cost, because remember, you'll be holding the stock, i.e. you'll be having the money in your vaults, you know, you'll be having the goods in your warehouses, and people are not coming for them because they're expensive as a result of the time, all right? Sometimes too, you would realize that there's a buffer. There's a lot of money in the system. The idea that your cost base was 5 cedis and then your markup was 3 cedis, making 8 cedis. You are sticking to that without taking cognizance of the changes in the economy. Maybe there's a government policy, and because of that, there's more money in the system. You have to actually reflect or revise your pricing to suit that, so that you can make more gains, you know, for you know, worse periods, I mean, to come, so that you can be cushioned. So you need to be conversant with the market and the way the market is moving, and then price accordingly. Don't be dogmatic and say, oh, it's a cost-based pricing methodology, and therefore you're dogmatic about it. Are you with me?
Yes, Kobe.
Yes, Bridget.
Please, one of our segments,
Yeah.
they don't charge the customers like our premium people.
Yeah.
But then you need to leave a balance of 69,000.
This is your premium people. Me, I'm a premium customer, but I don't see the things you're telling me.
Yeah, the 69,000 balance.
Yeah.
You don't see.
Your people have to go back to them and ask them why I don't get all the services that you're telling
me. But like I'm just asking.
Yeah.
What are they pursuing? Like leaving a balance with the premium people. If your balance drop, then they charge you. But then if your balance is 69,000 upwards, you are not charged.
Yeah.
Then they give you the RM and all.
Yeah.
So what kind of strategy are they doing?
You mean at Legon with me? I know you're asking the question about what they're doing. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is it a revenue based something? I don't know. Is it
so clearly they're actually looking at what we talked about customer based, where they're looking at the customer's instances and then price accordingly. So they're not actually looking at cost based. Neither are they parity pricing. All right, but it's more of a responding to customers' needs directly. All right.
Oh, okay.
In order to actually have the prices, and that's why the pricing scheme, which means that they stand to gain more or they stand to lose depending on the times. All right, and then the customers' reactions. Yeah, good question. All right, any other question? Dora, do you have any question on that?
No, Kobe, please, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, so my question is, assuming you're offering a service and a situation like COVID comes around, so it is advised that after some, research and whatnot internally, you decide to maybe drop the service cost by, say, maybe 30%, just so that people can continue to subscribe. At what point in time do you start to reverse and go back to the original price? Because there will be different reactions to the situation. Whereas some people may start to find their feet early on, some may also take a longer time to get back on their feet to be able to pay the price that originally they should have been charged.
I agree with you. So you are saying that in the instance where we have moved on from COVID, let's say post-COVID, and during COVID, you reduce the price to reflect the times. Now, when we have moved on, that's post-COVID, at what point do you change the price? That's what you're asking, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, and that's why price transparency is very crucial, Immediately you are taking the decision to reduce price to reflect the times. Don't just do it without communicating it, all right? So you've got to actually serve notices to customers to say, hello, dear customers, thank you so much for your loyalty with us. We've been so blessed to have you. And, even in these harder times as COVID, you are still with us. And for your loyalty, we are rewarding you by such and such reduction, all right? And then let them know where the reduction is coming from, okay? Now, in the instance where situation improves, and then let them know the burden or the impact of that reduction on your business. But you are saying that this is a cost that you have absorbed, as a business, you have taken the decision to absorb because you appreciate the impact of COVID on the customer's lifetime or customer's welfare. And that's why management had taken the decision to absorb these costs, all right? As sometimes you want to even give a duration, how long that scheme is going to last, all right? And say that we anticipate that this scheme would last for the next 6 months, after which we believe situations might have normalized, and so we could move, to our existing frame, all right? Now, I don't know whether I'm making sense. When you make, when you make these interventions, you communicate the price actions, and you make sure that there is price transparency, at that point, already you have said that in the next 6 months when situation improves, because you have said 6 months because per projections, everyone is thinking that by 6 months time, we should have a vaccine. Things might have normalized. So you actually put that caveat there, and then you let people know that by 6 months time, things will move on. By the 6th month, you are serving notices that because situations have improved, obviously business, and then you can actually say how much it costs the business to actually, absorb that price. And so you are now moving back to customers can actually agree with you and will be prepared to, to move along with you. But you see, in most cases in our business, and I was telling my colleagues the other time that we are sometimes not transparent in our dealings with customers. Why? Because of our own ethical issues. So we could actually reduce the price, but without telling customers. Just because when we want to increase it, we're not also telling them. In such situations, when customers actually find out that you have used some clever way of increasing the pricing when you had reduced it, they are going to question you that why have you increased the price? And then so, but we have moved back to normal time. But the point is that you didn't tell them the rationale behind your reduction of the prices. So they couldn't actually think that it is because of COVID and you were actually trying to help them. That's why you reduced it. Are you with me, Michael?
Yes, I understand totally.
Mm-hmm. So we've got to be transparent with our, pricing. And last time, as I was telling you, we were discussing, fees, and I said, look, every fees are not as if they are bulk pack. They have their items. So if you're charging a fee, you want to be transparent by identifying the items that are actually in the fees and say you are paying for water, you are paying for this, you are paying for that, you are paying for that. Now, when you are like that, customers are always believing and trusting your brand, that your brand is of high quality, your brand is transparent, your brand is ethical, So we've got to start practicing some of these things, and customers will love us for that. And they would, because they think that as for this company, they don't cheat. Why are they saying this company don't cheat? Because already you have let them know every bit of the things that they are paying for. And indeed, they could see that, oh yeah, I consume this, I consume that, I consume that. But where we just give them one price. In fact, some company, they won't even tell you the price. When you go and inquire, they say, when you come, we'll tell you the price. Such a character means that you are trying to swindle customers, right? But we have to be so transparent in the way we communicate pricing. It is not wrong for us to put our prices online. But some people think that, because of competition, they will copy. No. As a very strategic business, businesses that actually have foresight and they have very good, strategic insight, they don't mind putting some of these information up because they know how to compete. Yeah? Okay. All right, so if you look at the cost considerations in the financial services, like what we're discussing, at certain, customer numbers, the cost is flat, all right? So you have a total fixed cost and a number of customers. You see that from year 1 up until, let's say, year 5, all right, with a certain number of customers, let's say 400,000, the total fixed cost will be the same. But over a certain threshold, let's say you move from 100,000 customers to 200,000 or 150,000, certainly the bank is supposed to expand, isn't it? And then, and the cost of expansion, like new branch, opening new branch, recruiting new staff, etc., getting new, infrastructure would increase. And in that case, it means that at a certain threshold, the fixed cost actually moves up because you have acquired new branches, etc. All right, and that's what you see, there at a certain. And then, of course, when you look at, your average cost actually moves, downward as a result of, time and then the number of people that you actually, take on board. So if you increase customers by a certain margin, in terms of your average cost, it comes down. But in terms of your, the other cost variables that we saw, it increases. So average cost actually comes out. Why? Because of what we call economies of scale, isn't it? So economies of scale actually sets in and then reduces, reduces your average cost. All right. So that's the example that we can actually see there. All right, let's look at another pricing methodology, which is parity pricing. All right. Parity pricing is what majority of the consumer markets they use. I'm not sure to what extent the financial services use parity pricing, but it's one of the interesting pricing methodology that companies, especially in real estate, in what do you call consumer markets, they use, especially in telcos. But it can actually spark price war because you don't know the capacity of someone and why they are pricing their, their product or services at a particular level. So parity pricing, the simple methodology is that, or the approach is that you have to look at among the competitors, who is your key competitor? So you just don't go out and say, I'm parity pricing, company A or company B. If there are 5 companies or 6 companies or 7 companies in the market, you have to be sure which of these companies is your key competitor, all right? Now, by identifying them as key competitors, you're looking at their customer strength, their customer size, their workforce, their systems, technology use, etc., and see whether you match with them. Once you match with them, you know that perhaps they are your key competitor. And then you ask yourself whether when you manipulate your pricing to a certain level, you are able to move their customers to your end. And that's how we fight on market share. So regardless of whatever industry you're in, when you're actually looking at market share, building your market share or moving your competitors' customers to your side, you've got to, or you have to use parity pricing in a way that you could target exactly those customers that you're looking for in order to move to your side. And there's the methodology. So you establish that here we are the competitor, you are the competitor C, all right, in the market. You have 7% share. And then your cost is 861. That is your premium, all right? Now, competitor A has 47% share, which they are the leaders in the market. Competitor B, 21% share, and their price is 852. Competitor D is below us, 5% share, 731. Competitor E, 3% share, 1,191. Now, what does this tell you? Clearly, competitor E is likely to be a niche market, all right? Because if you look at everybody is actually charging 900, 800, whatever. Look at how much they're charging, 1,191. Do you get it? Now, it almost tells you that competitor E is a niche company who is perhaps targeted to the top 1% of the market, the top super rich people. That's no-go area. Now, you could almost say that, okay, why don't we look at perhaps competitor B as our key competitor, all right? Now, if you identify the competitor, which we'll go to, the next slide. So let's assume that we are actually looking at competitor, let me see, 8, 6, 10, 9. Okay, let's go for competitor A, all right, as our key competitor. And the competitor A market share is 47%. Their pricing for last year was 838, all right? Last year's, our pricing was what? 861. Remember, we are competitor C. I hope you are following it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to parity price, it means that you have to, and then we already know competitor A's revised price, that is the current year's price, right? Which is 887. So to parity price for this year, that is, we are determining our price for this year using competitor A as our benchmark. It means that you do 861, which is our last year price, divided by 938, which is the key competitor that we are benchmarking last year price, which is 938. And then you multiply it by the key competitor's revised price, that is the current price, which is 887. Now what you get is 814, which means that for us to parity price competitor A, in order to, see whether we can take off some of their customers, our price has to be what? 814. I hope you're following it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the assumption is that when you price at 814, you are most likely to move competitor A's customers to you. Now, why is it that? It's because perhaps you and competitor A have similar products, you have similar capacity, but of course they happen to be the market leader, all right? And you're thinking, how do you actually move some of their customers? And perhaps the two of you have similar customers, all right? Your customer characteristics are similar. So you're looking at how do you move their customers, some of them, or how do you tempt some of their customers to your company? And this is how you actually parity price, all right? So you could actually look at the possible competitors or the possible companies that you probably can identify as key competitor. And then if you take B, for example, the same thing, if you realize that if you have to parity price competitor B, the price will be 804. If you have to parity price competitor A, the price is 814. Then you decide which one you want to go for, that you will be able to attract customers from. Yeah? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the rest? Are you following? You have questions?
I'm not sure I'm very clear on why a business would want to model their price using this sort of formula.
Okay. So we are saying that, business approaches are, many. For example, I don't know whether you followed Ansoff matrix. Are you aware of Ansoff matrix?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Ansoff.
Yeah. So Michael, Ansoff matrix is a marketing, is one of the marketing strategies for growth. All right. So for example, you want to actually look at market penetration, or you want to look at market development or product development or diversification. I don't know whether you're familiar with these terms. Now, when you want to market penetrate, it means that you want to build market share, all right? And building market share is dependent on, getting some customers from your competitors, all right? Now, obviously, we've gone through, pricing strategies like the cost-based pricing. Now, when you do cost-based pricing, it does not necessarily move customers to you, all right? But if you want to move customers to you, that is build a market share, what you do is you parity price, i.e. you mirror your price against competitors' price. Now, you do not do that on a whimsical basis. You have to have a strategy to determine the appropriate price that has the capacity or that is likely to move the customers. And so your question about why would a company do that is because the company wants to move, some customers of their competitors to their side. And that's the reason why a company would want to do that. Are you with me?
Okay, understood. One more question though.
Yeah.
So what happens if your competitors decide to play the waiting game and don't release their revised price?
Exactly.
And your customers are also waiting for you?
Exactly. So that's a very competent question. So these are some of the limitations, all right, of pricing strategies such as parity pricing, all right. So you have gaps such as what you have raised. Others would also be that what if the company that you are mirroring has the muscle to reduce their prices further when they realize that you are mirroring them, and then they undercut the market? Or what if other competitors also undercut the market? So these are some of the questions that actually serve as the limitation for parity pricing. Are you with me?
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. So then the question is that do you then have insider? That's why companies actually use insider. You know, some companies pay for espionages, all right? There are companies who actually pay people to go and seek employment in other companies just because they want to get information from there. Are you aware of those cases?
Yes, I even suspect that I may have suffered something of that sort.
Exactly.
Recently.
Yeah, exactly. Espionage. Companies do that, especially the multinationals. So they would recruit someone, he's on their payroll, and they will ask them to go and seek employment with another company, which is their key competitor. So that person's role will be feeding them with possible, market movements, such as pricing, such as takeovers, etc. All right. So corporate espionage is very, very practical. People do that. So the question that you ask is that then, do you have other competencies? Like, how good is your intelligence gathering? All right. How good are you in making projections? So this company that you're parity pricing hasn't actually put their current price out, but what are some of the indicators that you can actually use to, kind of gauge appropriately what their price would be, and as a result, parity price? All these will be the questions that you as a management have to actually look at, all right? And as we said, we're also, in parity pricing, you're also thinking that all things being equal, that is, there is a constant in this situation. Remember that situations are not constant. So immediately you parity price, incidents like COVID actually comes in. What do you do, all right? Or immediately you parity price, there's a much more competitive, provider comes into the market. And immediately they come into the market. Maybe you didn't know, you didn't monitor that there was a new entrant coming in. So you parity price, a new entrant comes in with a completely, a high-tech, methodology, completely low price, etc. They hit the market and you're down, all right? So these are some of the realities of parity pricing. But it's one of the key, pricing strategy that we use to actually build market share, all right? And to woo or attract customers from other competitors. I hope I'm clear on that.
Yes, please.
Okay. Any other questions or contribution? All right. So as we said, parity price can actually set price war because companies may have mother companies or parent companies elsewhere that are actually supporting them the cash. I mean, a typical example. I think, I don't know whether you guys, I'm sure you would know about the Republic Bank and their parent company in the, is it Barbados or Trinidad and Tobago? Trinidad and Tobago.
Republic Bank.
Republic Bank. Are you aware of their parent companies and their muscle?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Republic Bank is the national bank for Trinidad and Tobago, and they are like the GCB in Trinidad and Tobago, and I hear they really have money, because obviously they are the ones that drive the country's oil. They are the investors into the oil fields, etc. So I hear they really have money. So if Republic Bank, for example, want to, for want of better word, want to destabilize the market here, they can really, really go that much. And when there are some players, industry players, when you speak to them, I have some friends, they tell me, look, these guys can actually rattle the market, right? But of course, maybe because of their arrangement, they could actually make the Ghanaian, company a little bit, independent from the parent company. But if it comes to competition, firms can actually take decisions to support the other companies without you necessarily knowing. And when it happens like that, they can rattle the market in a way. But of course, the regulator too will be there watching, so you don't want to do certain things that could actually cause the regulator's attention on you. Right? So price war is one of the limitations of parity pricing. And sometimes the price war can actually dry your coffers because they will move the price down. You want to follow suit before you realize you're out of market because you don't have the money anymore. to actually follow that. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or contribution? Okay. So the next or the last, pricing strategy or method is what we call the value-based pricing. And that's what Bridget, you were asking about your people, and the kind of thing that you're using.
That limit that they are saying 69,000. So what type of strategy are they?
Yeah, so that's what we call the value-based, dependent on the customer and their value. So with value-based, pricing, you're looking at whether the customer is prepared to pay extra for the kind of value that they are getting. And I think that earlier on, Joseph asked the question about what about the value of the product, in price consideration. Now, it is very key in price consideration because where you identify that the product that you're offering is of a higher value than the competitors, i.e., you have a very differentiated brand, all right? You move into value-based pricing. And that's what I was also explaining to Dora, that you can be a small business, but the value that you're providing in the market is a very high value, very distinctive value. And people are prepared to pay extra for that particular value, right? And in that sense, you would, go on the value based. I'll give you a typical example. I remember, I'm sure most of you were very, very young. I remember when Ariba, it was Space Phone, all right, when they came into the market. At that time, Tigo, which was Millicom then, was in the market with the phones that we knew were phones at the time, very big phones. It was analog, so you don't actually see numbers. There was no, caller ID, caller identification numbers on your phone, and that's what we knew as phones, all right, because they were just new. Mobile phones were new in the market. Now, so Millicom Ghana was leading, i.e., Tigo, which at the time was Mobitel, was leading the market. One day we just woke up and there were these tiny, tiny phones, all right? Alcatel, Siemens, Motorola, very, very, very small thin phones like this. They said there's a new company in the market called Space Phone. And when they call you, you can see the number. Come see. Everybody switched to Space Phone. I don't remember who was not really thinking about moving to Space Phone. Why? Because, Ghanaians, a lot of people want to swerve people, right? So you owe somebody, he's calling you, and you don't want to pick. Meanwhile, with Mobitel, you couldn't have that luxury. Somebody calls you, you don't know who is calling, so you definitely have to pick before you realize it's the guy you are owing, all right? But with Space Phone at the time, you can see the number and decide not to pick the number. And Ghanaians and their rally ways, all right? So that was a very good value addition, all right? Completely distinctive from the existing market. So despite the fact that they came in with smaller phones, there was another reasons why people had to go for it, because they could see who is calling and decide to pick or not. That was the problem of Mobitel, that is of Tigo today. Today, Tigo lost that position and never came back, all right? Meanwhile, they were the first in the market with Westel, all right? Millicom controlled the market completely, obviously, Ghana Telecom with us, where the Millicom controlled the market. But they didn't listen to the advancement of the market. They thought that Ghanaians were satisfied with Mijina Bontina Mekese, and continued to provide that. Immediately, Vodafone, Space Phone came with that value addition. People were prepared to pay how much, and Space Phone, I don't know, those of you who are aware, I don't know whether Dolores, you are aware of Space Phone at the time.
Yes, Kobe.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
People were prepared to pay for how much it cost to get that yellow SIM card. And unfortunately, it took Tigo out of the leadership, and so you So when it comes to value-based pricing, so long as you are providing the consumer with the right value that is completely distinctive of what the market is supplying, I'm telling you, people are prepared to pay for that extra value in order that they could actually have that extension, you know. And that is, you know, value-based. So with value-based pricing, it doesn't mean that you don't look at your cost build-up. You definitely look at your cost build-up, that is the inputs that is going into the product, how much is it costing you, all right? You also have to look at perhaps what the market is charging, because you cannot be a business without monitoring what your competitors are doing. But what we're saying is that with all these factors into consideration, one key thing is that you also have to find out whether there is something that you are doing unique that because of that, customers would want to pay additional money to have it, all right? And that's what we call profit maximization. You have to move into that space, you know, to really get the customers, you know, to pay extra more. And then use that money to sustain that differentiation, all right?
The value, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. To sustain that value that you're providing. Because if you don't, and the competitors catch up, you don't have any distinction anymore, all right? Or somebody else come in, like the case of, you know, what do you call, Millicom and Spacephone, then you lose that leadership, all right? So you've got to use that additional to support the product in a way that you can keep your competitiveness and you can keep your leadership, all right? I hope it's clear. So the way you do it is that you want to identify, so this is an example of value-based pricing. So just as you're identifying, remember you have done your cost build-up and you know how much it costs you, right? Now, with value-based, you're also looking at which of these attributes offer value to customers. Is the idea that you are number one in the market or top 3 organization of a value? You know, there are some customers who would actually bank with only NIB, ABSA, then, you know, what do you call, Barclays, or Standard Chartered, all right, or GCB, because of what? Trust, all right? Because they know that these banks, no matter what you do, they will be there, all right? And no matter what you do, their monies will be safe. So you will tell them to go anywhere, but they are offering this, and they will tell you that no. Now, that is a brand issue, recognition, brand recognition. Now, to what extent are people prepared to pay for that extra, you know, safety or extra security in the brand? If people are prepared to pay for that, you have to actually add up. Joseph. Joseph, your hand is up. Hello, Joseph. Okay. So
sorry.
Yeah, coming. Yeah.
Sorry. I want you to help me here. Can we have 2 products in-house?
Yeah.
And also get value-based pricing for them?
Yeah.
2 products of the same organization, having different value-based pricing.
Yeah.
I'm asking this question because I want to cite an example. For instance, if somebody walks into the bank and says that I want to deposit my fixed deposit receipt, my FDR for safekeeping. Now that's a small paper. Or the person walks in and says, I want to deposit my my tenancy agreement in your bank as safekeeping. Now another person walks in and says, I want to deposit maybe 3 bars of gold, which is worth millions of cedis into your in your vote as safekeeping. Now these 2 items or 3 items will never have the same charge or pricing in terms of because of the value each of them, you know, bring.
I agree. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
so does it mean you are not always going to look at your competitor and also begin to, for instance, do I have to look at another bank and say that if they are charging a bar of gold for 10 cedis, do I also have to charge maybe 10 cedis or 11 cedis? Or because I'm looking at my own internal arrangement, I can decide to price them the way I want to. That's not actually looking at the competitors.
I get a point you're making. And yeah, as I said earlier, when you're doing value-based pricing, it doesn't mean you're not paying attention to your cost, based, or it doesn't mean you're not paying attention to what competitors are offering. You still look at that, but you also look at whether customers, are prepared to pay extra. And let me give you, per what you just cited. When you look at the bouquet of courses that UGBS offer, all right? We have the MBA, we have the weekend MBA, and we have the EMBA, okay? Now, people come to the EMBA for a particular reason. And the reason is that they do not want to leave their jobs, all right? So they want to maintain their jobs and still have an MBA, all right? So the only time they can make it is in the evening. Now, we said, okay, so we can offer you that evening, but then you have to do it 2 years, all right? The same way, we can offer you another MBA, which is the weekend MBA, but then you have to come on Saturday and Sunday. That is, forfeit your Saturday, Friday and Saturday, sorry. But then you do it, again, 2 years, all right? Someone will do that MBA regular, but they do it for 1 year. So you realize that the same product, because it's the same cost content, all right? But because of the value addition, and value addition here means that we are doing it at your convenience. Do you get it? So we are sacrificing our convenience, which is the evening that I'm supposed to go home and sleep. I have to actually come to class for you. And so the price differential between these two, that is the regular MBA and then weekend MBA and then in the EMBA, are completely different. Are you with me? So, but that is not to say that you would not monitor what GamePay is doing. You would not monitor what KNUST is doing. You will still be looking at that. But we're saying that does the customer actually think that there is certain differentials that they are prepared to pay more? Again, when we look at that differentials between, let's say, KNUST and then let's say Legon, all right? The business school of Legon had been in existence more than the KNUST business school, which is, recently, when you compare the two. So the issue is that because UGBS had been in existence for long, there is a network of people, that is alumni, that are in the system within the business sector, that are quite a lot. So you have that opportunity of brand recognition. So you get into an interview, they say, oh, where are you coming from? Oh, UGBS. They say, oh yeah, I was there, all right? All these factors are being considered in terms of the pricing. So we're actually pricing higher than KNUST because you're looking at your network capacity, you're looking at the establishment of your brand, you're looking at the idea that we're giving the customers or the students convenience, etc., in order to ask yourself whether you can charge a little bit more. And it still works. Are you with me, Joseph?
I'm with you.
Yeah. So you can have two products or two services in your portfolio targeted at different customers with different offerings or different attributes and charge differently. All right. So yes, you can actually have that done, but that is not to say that you actually value pricing without looking at what the competitor is offering. You will still have to have your cost based pricing, because certainly you can't ignore how much it's costing you to produce that service. All right. You have to also look at what competitors are offering. But crucially, do you have the luxury to price more, and are the customers prepared to pay for that more because of the distinctiveness of the product? If the answer is yes, why do you just price based on cost? You have to make use of that space that a customer actually permits you to use in order that you can make more money, and then support it, support the product with that extra income that you're making or that extra money that you're making. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So you have to identify all the value points, all right? what is it that the customer sees as value? Is it a brand name? Is it about, let's say, the establishment of it? Is it a cost content? So you have to identify the differential. I mean, what really sets you apart? And that gives you that extra value. And then identify from the customer through, let's say, survey or through even focus group discussion with people. Oh, what about me that you like? Oh, yeah, I like the way you walk. Okay, yeah. Do you think I walk differently from other people? Oh, yeah. You have some style, B, you do your legs. Okay. Are you prepared to Bridget? Delores, if you see the young students, my student, the level 400 and things, the level 300, they have a way of walking. They are able to do their legs some way. Yeah, sometimes I wonder how they can sustain that. And they will walk like that for a long time. So you identify with the people, you ask them the questions, whether they like the differentials between you and competitors, and whether they want to pay extra. And as you see the example, so you rank order the attributes of value, all right? If you identify those, you can have about 3 or 4 values that you think set you apart from competitors. And then rank them in order of importance and ask customers which one of them offers them more value and how much extra do they want to pay for that value. You add that to your other, cost factors, and then you determine your price. And that's what we've done, which, it comes out to 1,019. So the methodology that you could use, there's a methodology called conjoint analysis. Marketers use that a lot in having that pricing strategy, whereby you identify what we call pathways that offer value to customers, all right? And whether those pathways could be identified and what do you call quantified, and then ask customers whether they are prepared to pay more for that. Okay. Any questions or contribution? Any questions? Yeah. So let's look at sources of value. If you take a credit card, obviously we're looking at, convenience. Yeah, Lois, go on. Were you asking a question, Dolores?
No, please.
Okay.
No, please.
Okay, cool. So when you look at the various, financial services or products and the values that they create, there is also value destroyers. There are other things that also destroy the value. So you've got to actually identify the value creators and then value destroyers in order that you could actually bridge a gap, solve the value destroying characteristics, whereas you enhance the value creators. So, if you have any example of some of the value creators in some of the products that you offer or the services that you offer, who can tell us? Any value creators or value destroyers? Okay. All right. So the common pricing practices in specific financial, obviously, we know this is a credit product, savings account, investment and brokerage services, insurance. They all have their pricing. When you're looking at pricing of credit products, 2 things that you're looking at: time frame and then collateral. With a time frame, they're looking at revolving versus non-revolving credit, and then collateralized or non-collateralized credit. Now, the characteristics of the product will determine which of the frames do we use. And usually, when you look at a credit card, all right, with credit card, for example, is actually revolving, isn't it? And then loans are non-revolving. And whatever the product is, revolving, obviously is likely to be non-collateralized because, they pay in as and when they use, and then of course, loans will be collateralized because it's a non-revolving, and as a result, you could actually default and not come back. But of course, in order for the bank to actually, recoup that, it has to be, collateralized. But of course, it also depends on the scale of it.
The bank.
Yeah.
Our loans are not collateralized.
They are not collateralized.
Yes. It's based on your salary and the EML, like the companies we can lend to. So it says basically you must have an ending, and your company should go on our lending framework, and then we can give you a loan. We don't have any.
Is it a new policy? It means you've changed from those days.
That was those days, and our loans are fixed too.
Oh, okay. But wouldn't you consider the salary as a collateral?
So could it be a collateral?
Yeah, I'm asking. Do you guys consider it as a collateral, or you don't consider it as a collateral?
Maybe, but that is all. All that you need is your salary.
Oh, okay. So we can actually say that the definition of what is collateralized had changed, isn't it? From previous times where it was a landed property or property that they can, liquidate and immediately pay off the loan, had actually changed.
You can do that. That one, they call it the credit. It's like you give us your documents and we value the land or your house. Then based on that, we can do equity release for you.
Yeah. And that's for a particular amount of money, right?
Yes.
Okay. But those of us who come for small monies, it's just about our salary and that's it. Yeah. Okay, great. Now, so
please have a question.
Yeah, Michael, yeah.
I don't know if perhaps you've already explained this. My line went bad for about a minute or so.
Okay.
But can you please quickly just explain to me the concept of revolving, non-revolving, collateralized, non-collateralized? I think I may have a fair idea, but just to be sure.
Right. Yeah. So revolving credits are the facilities such as credit card, all right? Or, I think you would also consider, this name, it always escapes me. Overdraft, all right, as a revolving credit, because it works as and when you use it, you have to utilize it, you have to pay back, all right? So immediately after first use and you don't pay back, you don't, earn it again. So revolving credits are credits that you would say that they don't have end in sight, all right? So as long as you use it, there's no termination period until you abuse it before there is a termination. Are you with me on the revolving? Now, yeah, non-revolving credit has a termination period, all right? Because it's for a particular time, a specific time. So you take a loan and the loan is for 5 years or repayment is for 3 years or whatever, all right? There's an end in sight. So that's a non-revolving credit, all right? And we're saying that per their characters, and I think Bridget is actually saying even they are now looking at, certain methodology to actually change that. Every non-revolving credit facility, most of the time they are collateralized. Because they are non-revolving, the chances or the probability of, non-payment is high. And so majority of time, non-revolving credits are actually collateralized so that just in case, there's a default, the bank can actually fall on the collateral to defray that cost. And most of the time, revolving credits are non-collateralized because majority of times, even when you look at the scale of it, the volume of it, most of the time, the non-revolving credit seem to be on a higher level than revolving credit, which is just, in terms of value, may not be so high. And so most of the time, the revolving credits are non-collateralized, i.e., you do not have to put something of higher value there before you acquire it, all right? Because the banking system or the system is such that you have to be repaying them every month as and when you use it. Is that clear, Michael?
Very clear.
Excellent. All right. So, we were discussing about some of the changes, and I think that some of these concepts are actually changing over time. In fact, when it comes to collateralized, I suppose there are certain institutions that now can even do away with collateral, or we probably have been dealing with, collateral from a certain amount of money. In fact, those days, when you go to a bank, even for 5,000 Ghana cedis, I'm sure they will ask you for collateral, isn't it? But times have moved on. And as Bridget is saying, people are now using, what do you call your annual, your monthly salary as collateral, whereas those days, your monthly salary couldn't even serve as a collateral. Why? Because I think that the market has changed, all right? You realize that there is a middle class, there's a growing middle class that wasn't there earlier. In the times that we were growing up, I never had a loan that would not be collateralized, all right? And I remember I used to go to the bank a lot with my dad. Whenever there's the discussion about loan, then it means you have to put your car there, you have to put your house, you have to put your company papers, you have to put so many things. But here is the case, Bridget is even telling me that I'm old school now. Because...
But, Kobe,
yes.
Even the salary is not everything, no. We do this DSL. There's a limit of your salary that can be taken as a repayment for every month. So even you can't go beyond a certain threshold. It should fix like 45% at most of your DSL.
Yeah. So I'm sure those of our people who are I mean our old people who have died and gone, they will be so sad that they didn't benefit in this Ghana. Because those days immediately you hear loans. Where is your house? Where is your car? They would even ask you where are the birth certificate of your children, just in case you default. They will come for them. But things have changed, and I think it's because things have. No, it used to be that Kukwa. Look, those days, if you owe a bank or something, and they come for you and you're not there, they can pick your wife or your mama or something. Yeah, they used to imprison people's relatives, isn't it? Yeah, they used to imprison people's relatives. Before you realize, they say, oh, they've come from your mother. Your mother is in Canterbury. You have to go and give yourself away before they release. A lot of people did bad things, and their relatives were the ones who suffered because somebody has gone to do something. The police will come for them. They will not find them, and they will arrest the mother instead, or they will arrest the wife instead. There were so many human rights abuses those days that you couldn't even think about why it was the case then. But obviously, Ghana has changed tremendously, So a lot of things have changed. So that's the issue. So I think that things have improved, identification have improved, tracing had improved because we can trace where you are. People are now becoming more middle class. Salaries are quite okay. I wouldn't say it's good, but quite okay when you compare to those days. I mean, sometimes some of our old professors will tell you that those days when he came to the business school, there was only one professor who used to have a car, and even his car, he would drive out and you get to some point, the car will just, get stuck there, then boys will be pushing, But now if you come to the business school, almost every faculty member has a car, right? Which means that the economy has somehow, changed a little bit. And because of that, some of these policies are changing, these collateralized, non-collateralized and things are actually changing. And very soon, I'm sure things like loans would not even demand so much, documentation than it used to be. All right. Okay. Now, obviously, pricing of credit considerations, as we said, higher rates apply to non-collateralized credit because when you take credit card, for example, because they are not collateralized, all right, the institutions also have to find a way of redeeming the money early, all right, or redeeming a greater part of the money just in case somebody actually abuses. So you realize that the rate at which you price credit cards are not the same as the rate at which you would price loans, all right? So the credit card rates are always, higher, than, you would find ordinarily with normal loans, for example. I don't know whether it's the case, with you guys. Dolores? You are the central bank, right?
Soon. I'm with Consolidated Bank.
Consolidated. Yeah,
Very soon. That will be my address.
The center of Consolidated.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Bridget, what did you say?
Is the whole central way of manager.
Hey, you know me small.
Don't mind Bridget. Don't mind Bridget.
Okay, I'll come and visit you one day.
Yes. I'll be expecting it.
You know, so the collateralized, because it's non-collateralized, obviously you have to find a way of making sure that you.
Kobe, please, I have something to say.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
So I think that even nowadays, auto loans are becoming non-collateralized.
Mm-hmm.
So the agency that I work for, one of our clients is CFAO, which deals in Mitsubishi and Suzuki. Yeah. We recently run a campaign for them on a Suzuki car, and they are planning to extend it to all of their other cars, where you can get an auto loan as long as it comes through one of their partner banks. And I think the partner banks are either Bank of Africa or Societe Generale.
Oh, Michael, we're losing you.
Yeah. Michael, you've gone karaoke.
But for the auto loans, the car is
there's some sort
what
of
they'll
regular
use.
Those banks
Michael,
to have sort of some sort.
Michael, you went karaoke.
Sorry, we lost you. Yeah, we lost you.
You went.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
I said you went karaoke, so you have to come again. You know karaoke. You were like singing.
Right. Understood. I was saying that yes. So there's no need for collateral to access this loan. I don't know if that's a norm or if that's a new service.
Yeah. Dolores, you were responding.
Yeah, I was saying that so for the auto loans, like the salary, the car that you're going in for becomes the collateral. Also, what we do now is that the customer is required to put in some equity, as commitment from his side. So I don't know what SG and BOA, if they are given the whole 100% to finance the car, but at least the customer will bring a 20% and they will finance the rest, for commitment.
Yes, with this one, the customer has to put 25%.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are some of the things that are, conditions.
Yeah.
For some of these loans, that are not collateralized. Yes.
Yeah. And then obviously there are certain measures that they've taken to ensure that indeed they would redeem it, because they're looking at where you work, they're looking at your status, etc. So I think that these measures have come in to replace the collateralized regime.
Yes, and the car, like I was saying, essentially is the collateral.
Yeah.
So you realize that in the conditions and everything of the offer, like the offer that the bank would give you, I mean, you would have to ensure that you have done the insurance, everything. They will be the first loss payees and all, just so that they don't lose out on this transaction.
Excellent. Good point. Okay, great contributions. Okay, guys, I think that it's 4:30. What time do we finish?
It's supposed to be 4.
Yeah, so we've done extra 30 minutes, right? Okay, so I would leave you to go and continue your Sunday, some rest, Then we'll continue with the risk associated and other things. I mean, the rest of the slides, not that plenty than the earlier ones. Yeah. So thank you for coming. Any questions or contribution before you go?
Just a reminder about the slides.
The slides. Yeah, I was supposed to convert them. We're doing exams, so I was too focused on those exams. The regular, the other undergraduate, but we're done, so I should be able to do it. All right, thanks. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you too.
Thank you too.
Thank
Have
you.
a good weekend and a
All
good
right,
week.
thank you. All right, and stay safe.
Bye, Fabi.
Bye.
Yes, please. You too. Bye.
Bye.